Keo here from Stomvi USA. There's lots of theories about how the trumpet and the mouthpiece work and how they work together and all that kind of stuff. And the reason it's really hard to understand as trumpet players what's true and what isn't true is because we can't see the sound wave. We can imagine how we think the air is going through the horn, but we can't see the sound wave. And so we try all kinds of different things. I remember when I was in college, I was studying from Don Hazard, who was principal trumpet in the Honolulu Symphony. And we had a great relationship. And I used to go over to his apartment on the weekends and take a lesson or two. And we'd hang out for a long time, and he'd teach me stuff, you know, repertoire and this and that. But then we'd have a little wine and maybe have dinner sometimes. And then we'd mess around with different things on the trumpet based on what we'd heard or what we thought. And Armando Guitala came to town and did a master class, and we'd gone to it. And Guitala was telling everybody that they should take a little piece of solder and wrap it around the narrow part of the mouthpiece, and that would make it play better. And so after we'd had a lesson and had a little dinner and had a little wine and maybe had a little more wine, we started experimenting with wrapping solder around different places. So we started with the mouthpiece, and we thought we felt and heard a difference. And then Don said, "Oh, I got a trumpet," and he says, anything I play first valve is always really sharp. I'm going to wrap a little piece of solder around the casing. And he played, he goes, "Oh yeah, that fixes it, that's great." And we were wrapping solder everywhere. And finally I looked at Don and said, "Hey Don," I said, "wrap a piece of solder around your neck and let's see what happens." So he goes, "Yeah, okay." So he wrapped some solder around his neck and he played. And I said, "Don, it sounds so much better." And he goes, "Oh man, I think you're right." He goes, "How am I going to do this?" I said, "Well, we'll just embed a piece of solder in your bow tie when you play in the symphony and everything. He'll be fine." And we laughed and had a good time. And there's actually some science behind why wrapping some solder around the mouthpiece might help it play different. And you can actually check that out. We'll put a link in the description below to a video I did called The Deal with Damping that'll explain that to you. But there's all kinds of theories and this and that. And I was at Texas Christian University recently doing a masterclass seminar presentation with Pacho Flores, one of the greatest trumpet players in the world. And there were lots of questions from the audience, you know, of course, about how to play the trumpet and gear questions, and most of those came to me. And the first question that the students asked about was about mouthpiece clocking. Well, I haven't heard about that for years. I mean, we experimented with that back in college, and the theory is that you can orient the mouthpiece like a clock. You can change from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock to 6, whatever, and by orienting it in rotating it in a different spot, you'll find a spot where it actually plays better or sounds better. And there was big controversy at the school about that. There was the clocking gang and the anti-clocking gang, and they were butting heads about who was right and who was wrong and this and that. And they asked me what I thought about it, and I said, well, from an acoustic standpoint, I can't imagine it would make, you know, any difference. Nothing that I know says that. And I said, but you know, if you clock the mouthpiece and makes you play better, didn't hurt your neighbor, so go ahead. If you play better and feel better about it, that's fine. And then they were asking me, I guess, someone had told them that when you have a mouthpiece, the only bore sizes that work are the even-numbered bores, so a 24, 28, 26, something like that, that the odd numbers just don't work correctly. Well, as a mouthpiece designer and builder for a lot of years, I know that that's really not true, because I've made mouthpieces that work great that had odd number bore size, like 27, 25, 23, whatever. So that one's not true. And then there was another one, they were telling me about tightening the screw on the water key of their trumpet, and they said if they get it at the right tension that it makes everything slot better. I don't know exactly what that would be about. They were saying it was a tension thing. When you got the tension just right, then everything slotted right. I said, well, could be. If that's true, then there must be a temperature component as well, because if you tighten up the water key to the right tension in this room, for example, which is about 75 degrees, I'm guessing, and then I took it into a real cold recording studio, I would assume the tension would change and I'd have to adjust it some more, which means if I really wanted to do that and get to the weeds on it, I'd have to make a little torque wrench, mini torque wrench. I could torque the water key down to just the right, you know, pounds per square inch and everything, tension to get it right. One of my favorite sayings is perfection is the enemy of good enough. And you have to learn where good enough is. And that can be difficult. And you have to decide on your own, what kind of trumpet player do you want to be. If you want to experiment with mouthpiece clocking, go ahead and do it. But try to do it in a semi-scientific manner if you really want to know. The same, you know, with water key screws or cryogenic freezing or anything else like that. There's a lot of information out there, and a lot of times if you ask the follow-up question, you'll come to a good answer. Like, well, if that's true, how about this? I want to be the guy that picks up the horn and plays. I don't want to have to worry about how my mouthpiece is oriented or how tight a screw is on the horn. I want to pick it up and play like a Jim Morrison or a Pacho Flores or a Jim Manley or a Javier Gonzalez, or there's lots of guys out there that do that. And there's lots of guys that are, shackled by having to have everything just right. I don't want to have everything just right because my lips aren't just right every day. So I want to pick it up, play it, and have a great time. That's me. You decide the player you want to be. And if there's anything we can help you out with, give us a call. Call me with any questions you got about this, and check out the links below because there's more information to some of this stuff. And most importantly, have a nice day.